Nicole.
There's not enough to call it a suicide.
Tonight, 2020's investigation lighting a fire under an 8-year-old cold case.
The family's strongest argument is this abrasion.
Follow along as we retrace Annie's final hours, far from home.
So Annie might have been here on Halloween night.
No stone left unturned, doing the job they say the police didn't.
They treated this evidence like trash.
From a pastry shop.
She goes, "Oh my gosh, that's her. She was here."
To a funeral home.
We always thought murder right away.
The Capitol to the state penitentiary.
Our first question was, did you kill our daughter?
And finally, the police, with nothing new to say to the parents, but talking to 2020.
What do you say to this family who says you didn't do your job, that you left them hanging?
Answers for Annie.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Vargas. David is on assignment tonight. At a time when so many of you have your children home for the summer, these parents have a never-ending mission. Still trying to find out what happened to their teenage daughter, how she died 8 years after the fact. 8 years after the police say they do know what happened. What will you decide tonight? Join the conversation. We're live on Facebook and Twitter as Deborah Roberts tries to find answers for Annie.
Alexandria, Virginia, a stone's throw from the nation's capital. An upscale suburb in Fairfax County with historic cobblestone streets, pleasant homes, and top-notch schools like West Potomac High. On Vantage Drive, it was the picture of tranquility until early Halloween morning in 2008.
And then this is Annie's room.
Is it hard to come in here?
No, it's joyful because it's Annie.
It was barely 6 a.m. and Dan McCann was saying goodbye to his 16-year-old daughter, Annie, before heading off to his managerial job with TSA in D.C. His wife, Mary Jane, a former White House IT worker and now stay-at-home mom, was on her way to upstate New York to visit the couple's son, Sam, in college. Annie, a high school junior, was a passionate artist and good student who played basketball and made her mom laugh.
Annie was funny, quirky, witty.
She was just a delight. She was just a person that I feel like everybody liked Annie.
Former classmate China Johnson Owens first met Annie in 7th grade.
Annie McCann was an angel on earth, honestly.
Her parents say Annie was young for her age, sheltered and a homebody. There was no Snapchat or Instagram yet, and the McCanns heavily monitored their daughter's time online.
She could barely work a flip phone, and she just got her Facebook account.
So I said, yes, you can have a Facebook account, but I get to look at it when I want. I want the passwords, everything.
What's here that she did?
It wasn't an issue since Annie preferred drawing and painting anyway.
That is really pretty, though.
Look at the colors.
Her work decorating the family home.
She was talented.
Very, very much so. Always put everything in a frame for her so she knew that it was important.
Her big obsession was capturing her cherished dog, Breezy Max.
She absolutely loved her dog, Breezy.
That's
and
a
he's
painting.
at the top of...
I actually thought that was a photo for a second.
No.
Annie's artistic touch even extended to Halloween with goodie bags she insisted on making.
She was too old to trick-or-treat, so she transferred her enthusiasm into giving the gifts out.
But just hours before trick-or-treaters would arrive, the first hint of trouble. Annie hadn't phoned her mom, something out of character.
Oh, she always called me like clockwork after school.
Mary Jane knew her daughter's routine. Straight home after school, and if neither mom nor dad were home, she'd call. Up in Ithaca, New York at Sam's college, when Mary Jane didn't get that usual ring of reassurance, she worried.
You know, as a mom, you just know. I got this gut. Something's not right. And so I called a neighbor. I said, are any signs of Annie? No. Any signs of the car? No.
Annie used the family's white Volvo to get to and from school.
Thoughts going through my mind, oh my God, what if she's, and you're thinking, what if she's, oh my God, what if she's in a car accident? Please God, let her be okay.
A panicked Mary Jane calls Dan, who rushes home and finds the house phone ringing. Would it be Annie or someone who knows where she is?
I answer, and it's an automated message from the Fairfax County Public School System. reporting that your son or daughter was absent today, the whole day. I almost collapsed.
So now you realize she was never even at school.
Right. So I call the police. Get over here now.
There's little to go on, and the Fairfax County officer who arrives isn't overly concerned. Maybe this is a typical teen acting out.
People were saying, don't worry, she just ran away, she'll be back. Kids do this all the time. It's not uncommon. Don't worry about it.
But Mary Jane is worried. Her daughter is far from rebellious and only recently had gotten her ears pierced. She's diligent about keeping them clean with a first aid spray Bactine. Keep that in mind. You won't believe how important it will be later. With no sign of Annie, her mom is frantic and begins making the achingly long 6-hour drive back home to Virginia.
What state are you in as you're driving?
I know I drove right through somebody's farm and finally got on some highway. I mean, we were like just stunned in the car and, driving fast and not stopping and like, why can't I get this car home faster? We have to find Annie.
We didn't know where the hell to go. We didn't know what to do. We did the best we could.
How did you get through that first night?
I don't know.
It was torture, wasn't it?
It was torture, yeah.
But the torment is only beginning.
When the call came in, I was told it was a dead junkie behind a dumpster.
Not even 48 hours later, homicide detective Sean Jones responds to a call.
I really honestly thought it would be a 20-minute type it up and be done. Not so much.
But the call isn't in Alexandria, it's here. The Perkins Homes housing project in Baltimore, Maryland, 50 miles and another world away from the McCann's bucolic neighborhood. And behind a dumpster in this section of the so-called Charm City, a man taking out the trash makes a gruesome discovery. And it's no junkie at all.
So you find the body of a white teen girl at a predominantly black housing project. What was your first thought?
That it was a homicide. It was a homicide. And we treated it as such.
Jones, a 25-year veteran Baltimore cop, knows right away this is an unusual case.
When you first looked at her, was there an apparent cause of death?
No.
Did it look like she had been beaten up?
No.
The Perkins Homes covers several square blocks in a high-crime area, just minutes from Baltimore's famed Inner Harbor and Camden Yards. Soon enough, Detective Jones discovers that the dead girl has a backpack nearby and papers that reveal a stunning fact. She's not from Baltimore, not even close.
I find a hall pass for Fairfax County High Schools. I find her driver's license, and I have people back at the office call the Fairfax PD.
A half hour later, the identity is confirmed. It's Annie McCann. Detective Jones leaves the ugly crime scene, driving to suburban Virginia to break the news to the McCanns in person.
How as a parent do you even...
You can't. You're in shock.
Do you ask any questions at this point, or are you just collapsed in grief?
You're collapsed in grief.
How did a sheltered girl from the suburbs wind up here? Amazingly, Annie McCann herself may have left behind the biggest clue. When we come back, the note found in Annie's bedroom. Is it a roadmap to what or who led to her demise?
She'd say, Dear Mom and Dad. She'd never write a note not saying Dear Mom and Dad.
What does it reveal? See what happens next. Nightfall in Baltimore, trapped between a dark harbor and sinister sky. A city with a long history of murder and mystery ever since Edgar Allan Poe wrote and died here. Now it's the case of Annie McCann that captivates. How does a white 16-year-old girl from the Virginia suburbs wind up dead here in the projects? Her stunned parents haunted this Halloween night by a note left on their daughter's bed.
This morning I was going to kill myself, but I realized I can start over instead. If you really love me, you'll let me go.
What started as a suicide note was beginning to sound like a runaway note. Goodbye.
I know I'm only 16, but I'm almost 17. I'll be careful. That's how that note ended. I'll be careful.
Why would she run away? Was there something brewing that maybe...
Well, apparently.
But was there something possible that you could look back on and think, maybe she was upset about this?
No. Dan called me and told me, and I'm like dropping the phone like, what?
What, indeed? Equally as confounding is what they will learn later, that Annie had taken $1,000 in cash, money she'd stashed away, all her favorite clothes, even a box of Cheerios. But nothing in the note hints at where she's going.
Did Baltimore make any sense to you? Was there any connection to Baltimore?
No connection to Baltimore. No sense at all. Annie could not even find her way to Baltimore.
There were all sorts of unusual angles to this.
To Washington Post Metro writer Tom Jackman, the mysterious death of a 16-year-old girl is big news.
Beyond the fact that a suburban girl was found dead in the inner city of Baltimore, there's no real explanation for how she died.
You don't see this very often.
No.
It wasn't the usual bill of fare for Baltimore homicide detective Sean Jones either.
90 to 95% of the cases we're dealing with are African American males that are shot on a street corner. I'm obviously going to look at this twice and not just glance over it as your average everyday case.
Then the case seems to crack like one of those famous Maryland crabs. First, police find Annie's Volvo abandoned at a gas station. Then, a tiny clue, a smudge. It's a fingerprint that matches someone already in their database. Could it be Annie's killer?
We had to get the fingerprint processed, and then once we got the name back from the fingerprint, that's when we moved on that.
Turns out the print belongs to a teen boy who says he and some friends came across the car in the projects. He says Annie, face down in the back, is already dead. So, as twisted as it sounds, they dump her body and go joyriding in her car.
So these boys just dumped her body?
Yes, ma'am.
And took the car?
Yes, ma'am.
One young man connected to the group, Darnell Kinlaw. Remember that name because you'll hear it again. But police don't charge him or anyone with assaulting Annie, in part because of the condition of her body. They're certain Annie was not beaten, strangled, stabbed, or shot.
When I initially met the McCanns, I made it very clear that I didn't know what we had, and that the autopsy, 99.9% of the time, is going to give us more clarity on what we're dealing with.
Then the autopsy results are in, and they're a surprise to everyone. Annie had a small amount of alcohol in her blood, but a large amount of something else. Lidocaine.
Lidocaine.
Lidocaine?
100 lidocaine?
It's a drug you may have heard of on those medical shows like Grey's Anatomy.
Nasal speculum and lidocaine.
To finally relieve your pain, now's the time for lidocaine.
It's also a common numbing agent in all kinds of over-the-counter products, including Bactine.
Relieves pain on contact. Bactine.
The antiseptic Annie had for her newly pierced ears.
Did you even know what Bactine was at that point?
Yeah. I have kids myself. I knew exactly what it was. And I knew what the active ingredients were.
But it's there in black and white. Annie died of lidocaine poisoning. Back at that gas station, crime scene investigators find what in any other case might be an innocuous piece of trash. But now Detective Jones considers it a smoking gun.
We found near the car a Bactine bottle that had the lid removed. It's not a screw-top bottle. It's something that requires a little bit of force to get off.
And Annie's DNA is discovered on the exposed part of the bottle. The medical examiner who did the autopsy won't guess how the lidocaine got into Annie's system, calling it undetermined. But the seasoned detectives have no doubt it's suicide.
But who kills themselves with Bactine?
People kill themselves. I've been in homicide for 15 years, and they get very creative. And this is just one of those methods.
To the authorities, this was a pretty open and shut case. She died of a lidocaine overdose. Problem is, it's so rare to find that someone died of that kind of overdose that it's going to lead to some questions.
This doesn't add up. This can't be. This is what you came up with, that she drank a bottle of Bactine?
And the McCanns are taking notes on other things that don't add up.
It was sound of the Baltimore police to consider suicide. It is reprehensible to conclude suicide.
They don't buy it, as they explain in an article they later write. If Annie was going to kill herself, they ask, why go all the way to Baltimore to do it? And if she drank that Bactine, why did the police not find her fingerprints on the bottle?
Her prints and our prints should be all over that bottle. Who wipes fingerprints while killing themselves?
And who writes a to-do list like Annie did on her hand if they're planning to end it all, reminding her to do her chores and say her prayers?
We thought it was a baffling mystery. Nobody's heard of anybody overdosing on Bactine, much less a kid from the suburbs who didn't seem to be that unhappy with life. And so we continued to press forward with the story.
And the story was far from over. When we come back, the McCanns are about to get disturbing new details about their daughter's death, not from detectives or the medical examiner. Try the funeral director and why she thinks suicide is out of the question.
We always thought murder right away.
You thought murder right away?
We did.
It's a ritual no parent should ever endure. Dan and Mary Jane McCann buried their daughter Annie a week after her death in this cemetery not far from their Virginia home.
Please get any justice, please, please, please.
But no one is resting peacefully. In a curious and cruel blunder, the McCanns say the medical examiner's office failed to restore 2 of Annie's organs after her autopsy.
Your daughter's heart and brain were not returned to her body?
No. No.
How is that possible?
I don't know. You tell me.
The McCanns are outraged. They say it's unheard of and wonder if the medical examiner could somehow lose their daughter's heart and brain. What else was botched? That's where Diane Downey comes in. We tracked her down at this Alexandria funeral home where she spent 25 years preparing bodies for burial. She says she was unnerved after receiving Annie's.
What did you think?
There's absolutely no way this was a suicide with all the trauma on her body.
Trauma? Dan and Mary Jane say police told them there was none. So what about the goose egg-like bruise on Annie's forehead? So unsightly the McCanns hesitated over an open casket.
I kept going back to the detectives, but they kept dismissing it as, no, they were just minor abrasions.
They were told minor abrasions, no evidence of an assault. And they see this. And so now they're probably really thinking there's something more here.
Downey was reluctant to share her suspicions with the grieving family. But the McCanns' heartbreak and bewilderment only grew much later when they would get their daughter's autopsy photos.
And I know these are hard for you to look at.
They're convinced they see a cigarette burn on her forehead, a mysterious letter J on her ankle, and worst of all, they think they see signs of a sexual assault.
I was horrified. It's like, oh my God, my daughter was tortured.
The McCanns suspect that their daughter is a victim of a crime, especially when that funeral director points out what she sees as another bizarre detail: Annie's fingers. It looks to her that they're wilted.
Her fingers were shriveled like they were raisins, like her body had been soaked for several hours.
Did that concern you?
Very much.
Was this a result of someone trying to wash away evidence?
Baltimore City Police will not reopen its investigation.
The case is closed.
Police may be standing down, but the McCanns are only ramping up their own investigation, and the media is all over the story.
The McCanns have made it known they were not happy with their daughter's death investigation.
And the parents are relentless.
The police do nothing and they sweep it under.
Baltimore police never honestly investigated Annie's death.
They begin emptying their savings, even Annie's college fund, to get at the truth, buying billboards around town, and then assembling their own dream team, starting with perhaps America's most famous medical examiner, Dr. Michael Baden, a fixture on Fox News.
You looked through the materials. What struck you right away?
What struck me right away was the circumstances first, that she was found by a dumpster. Somebody dumped the body there after death, and usually that happens in homicidal situations.
Baden says in 50 years of death investigations, he's never heard of anyone killing themselves by drinking Bactine. And in his opinion, there wouldn't be enough lidocaine in one bottle to kill Annie anyway.
So you were convinced that Annie McCann did not commit suicide by drinking Bactine?
That was my opinion, yes.
That's when it went, for me personally, it went, holy cow, she was murdered.
Still, no change in posture for the Baltimore police.
If you come across being angry, no one's going to help you. You come across, if you're nice, no one's going to help you.
Disappointed and desperate, the McCanns march on, all the way, in fact, up to Capitol Hill.
This committee
To Senator Charles Grassley, one of the country's most powerful members of Congress, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
If I can help, I want to help.
From Iowa, he isn't even the McCann senator, but they don't call him Hawkeyes for nothing.
Do you think the Baltimore PD blew it?
It looks to me like when they don't answer questions, they raise a lot of unnecessary suspicion. And if they want to avoid this suspicion, then it's pretty simple. Just come clean.
Grassley sent off official letters to the Baltimore police and the FBI. They wrote back defending the investigation and stand by the conclusion Annie most likely died from self-ingestion of Bactine. But Grassley also wrote to the makers of Bactine, the Bayer Corporation, and got another story entirely.
What exactly did you hear from Bayer about lidocaine?
Pretty simple, that one bottle of Bactine would not cause a suicide.
In fact, Bayer claims it previously told the Baltimore police the same thing.
Back in here.
Her body was found back in here?
Yep, right in here.
Which leads us to this man, the captain of the McCann Dream Team.
It's not your usual death. This is a mystery that stumped everybody. I mean, there's other
Jim Consis, a private eye and former Baltimore cop himself, now on Annie's trail.
Her name's Annie, white girl from Virginia. No, her.
He retraced his steps with us.
I canvassed the whole area, went door to door for months.
Literally walking me through his investigation.
Hey, guys.
Approaching anyone and everyone he could, like these folks at the Perkins homes.
So we're just trying to fill in the blanks on how the body got behind the dumpster.
But have you ever heard of anybody talking about the case? No?
Did you hear any scuttlebutt about it when you moved in? Like
No.
What might have happened to her?
No.
Then hitting the road.
Now we're getting in the heart of Fells Point.
So Annie might have been here on Halloween night.
Yeah, she could have been.
The key for Consis, determining where Annie was after leaving home and with whom.
What would this area be like on Halloween?
Packed, because all the bars are down there.
In fact, Fells Point is one big party on Halloween, with throngs of young people celebrating and taping the festivities. This footage shot the very night Annie disappeared. Consis says Annie may have been among the revelers. Then a big moment on this quiet block of Albemarle Street.
This is basically Little Italy. You got all the Italian restaurants here.
He arrives here, Vaccaro's, a Baltimore bakery famous for its pastries. When we come back, a very sweet clue, and the trail doesn't end in that bakery. Who are the McCanns about to question inside this prison? Stay with us. Vaccaro's pastry shop is a landmark in Baltimore's Little Italy.
He wants an espresso.
Famous for cappuccino and cannoli, it would become the setting for a stunning development in the case of Annie McCann.
What brought you here?
I know she had a sweet tooth, and her body was found over there. And she loved yogurt, pastries, and I'm thinking, why not take a shot?
It's 3 months after Annie's death, and the McCann family private investigator Jim Consis is showing Annie's picture to workers here.
So you came up to the counter here?
Yeah, I came up to the counter.
A clerk takes a look at the picture.
One guy goes, "Oh yeah, I think I remember her. Yeah, she was cute."
Then a server sees the photo, and it's as if someone dropped a pile of dishes.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That's her.
Remember her.
She was here.
Here, alive and well, sipping a cappuccino with extra whipped cream. Then a jaw-dropping revelation. Annie was not alone.
Yeah, she was with another girl. And then that's when the description came out.
A sketch artist is soon giving that description a face.
So you got the server here to give you the details to come up with the sketch.
Right, and then once the sketch was complete, she looked at it and she says, "That's her."
This is Annie's companion, according to a waitress. A haunting image of a tall, dark-haired woman, older than Annie, late teens, early 20s, disheveled, tired, looking like trouble.
She had heavy makeup. She had the ugliest fingernail polish you would ever see. It's puke yellow. Puke yellow. She had heavy-duty bags underneath her eyes, like she was tired.
As a detective, what's going on in your head at this moment?
I'm thinking, that's good. I got a hit.
Do you think this woman could be the key to solving this death?
Right.
This is big stuff, isn't it?
No, it ultimately does not have anything to do with Annie's death.
Sean Jones, the lead Baltimore detective on the case, says they looked into it, and he is not impressed. Not by the sighting of Annie, not by the mystery woman with her.
But if she's sitting and having coffee or a dessert with a disheveled young woman, that doesn't set off any bells for you?
Of course it does. It's important, but ultimately we weren't able to verify that it even happened.
The McCanns also released this sketch of a woman seen with Annie in Little Italy the day before her death.
The McCanns publicized the sketch, hoping someone will recognize the girl with puke-colored fingernails, one person who might possibly be able to shed light on their daughter's death. There have been many leads over the years, but they've never been able to track her down.
Every time they would find a lead, then they'd, hit a dead end, and it's like the mystery continues.
Just when many might have given up, the case of Annie McCann takes another strange turn. Nearly 3 years after her death, a murder with what seemed to be eerie parallels makes the news in Baltimore. 26-year-old Lakeisha Player is murdered and her car stolen. When police name the killer, the McCanns are flabbergasted.
Police believe the killer is this man, 21-year-old Darnell Kinlaw.
Darnell Kinlaw is accused of murdering Lakeisha Player in her Kentucky Avenue home this month and stealing her car.
The same Darnell Kinlaw previously questioned in Annie's case, and who the McCanns believe had been involved in tossing their daughter's body and taking her Volvo on that joyride.
That same guy then gets arrested for murdering someone and taking their car. It's a big coincidence.
Annie's case comes roaring back into the headlines.
The arrest was of 21-year-old Darnell Kinlaw for the murder of his girlfriend. Kinlaw was eventually charged with the unlawful taking of Annie McCann's car in 2008.
Awfully close to the same kind of circumstances.
I'd argue otherwise. He shot her and stole her car in a domestic incident. Has no similarities to Annie's case.
Do you think he knows more than he's told you?
No. As a matter of fact, I think that it tells the opposite, that if he were to murder someone, he's going to use a gun. He's going to use the standard method, and that he's not going to poison someone with lidocaine.
For years, the McCanns have wanted to question Kinlaw themselves, convinced they might be able to get something more out of him about Annie's death. Now, on a gray June day, nearly 8 years after Annie's death, they will get their chance. Kinlaw has surprisingly agreed to meet with them. Dan and Mary Jane leave their Fairfax County home for the nearly 3-hour ride across Maryland.
Are you nervous?
No.
Oh, yeah. Because I know that we might not get anything.
Yeah, that's what I fully expect. They might accidentally tell the truth or do it on purpose. We're going to interview one of what we believe are 5 thugs, at least 4, and we believe 5, who dumped Annie's dead or dying body from her car and then took the car for a joyride. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses.
Praying as they drive and strategizing.
We want to know the circumstances under which he found the car, found Annie. Had he seen her before? Had he seen her with anybody else? And can he please find it in his heart to help us find out who, not him, murdered our beautiful daughter.
Coming up, are the McCanns face-to-face with their daughter's killer? Does Darnell Kinlaw have answers about Annie? Watch what happens next.
"2020 continues with Answers for Annie."
Dan and Mary Jane McCann drive 150 miles across Maryland, doing the kind of detective work they say the Baltimore police are not. They're going to question Darnell Kinlaw, a young man they believe was involved in dumping their daughter's body and joyriding in her car in Baltimore nearly 8 years ago. Kinlaw's now doing 30 years for murdering his girlfriend, Lakeisha Player, and taking her car.
That takes a lot of guts. For these parents to walk into a maximum security prison and sit down and interview a man who they think may have killed their daughter?
He was on the other side of thick glass. We could hear each other very well.
They make small talk with the killer and even pray together.
And I said, Darnell, I take it from your letter, you're Christian. And he said, yes. I said, would you mind if we started with a prayer? And he said, no. And he joined us.
Then Dan gets down to brass tacks.
Our first question was, this is maybe the hardest question we're going to ask you, DJ, or maybe the easiest. Did you kill our daughter? No. You know, we had to ask, okay.
They say Kinlaw seemed genuinely upset at times, but as he looked into their heartbroken faces, they say he offered nothing that would end their misery.
Nothing. So we've worked a long time to get to see Darnell Kinlaw. Finally got to, and we got pretty much what we expected, which is nothing. We learned that he knows almost nothing about Annie's death.
Weary after struggling nearly 8 years now to prove that their daughter didn't take her own life, the McCanns' anger toward the Baltimore police is as raw as ever. We questioned lead detective Sean Jones about the McCanns' accusations, and we also confronted his boss, Colonel Stanley Branford.
The McCanns say that the Baltimore Police Department took the easy way out. By labeling this a suicide, they were able to wash their hands of it and move on to another crime.
I'm sorry that they feel that way, but that's simply not the way we approach this case. I can tell you that this case has been thoroughly investigated, not only by us, by the FBI, that we asked to come in and evaluate our investigation.
Doesn't this family deserve more answers?
We've given them all we can give. We cannot provide answers that we do not have. We possibly believe that Annie McCann committed suicide.
Suicide. But this is a girl who lived in the suburbs. Why would she drive 50 miles to a housing project in Baltimore to commit suicide?
Well, that I can't answer because I don't know the mindset of Annie at that time.
But police do share stunning evidence with us the McCanns did not. We already knew about the letter Annie wrote saying she was going to kill herself and changed her mind. But now police revealed their investigation found other notes in which Annie talks about suffering with anorexia and depression. She writes to a friend, "My suicide has nothing to do with you." In another note, "Pressure has gotten to me. I can't do it anymore." And no one blamed themselves for this. This is all on me.
In all of her writings, she had indicated that she was leaving, and she expressed to some degree that she was tired of living.
In response, the McCanns insist Annie did not intend those as suicide notes. One was found crumpled up under her bed, the other partly crossed out.
Now, my heart goes out to her parents. We have responded to every request that they made. We responded to every piece of information that came in.
After 1,200 hours on the case, the Baltimore Police Department stands by its belief that Annie took her own life by drinking Bactine. It's a critical question at the core of Annie McCann's death. Is there enough lidocaine in a single 5-ounce bottle of Bactine to kill a 16-year-old girl? The McCanns' medical experts are at odds with the Baltimore ME. So 2020 contacted Dr. Bill Mannion, a board-certified forensic pathologist. He estimates he's determined cause and manner of death in 2,500 cases over the years, but not one of them involved Bactine or lidocaine.
Bactine, I had never heard of that before. To be honest, I didn't know it was capable of killing you, but it is capable because it has lidocaine in it, and lidocaine is a toxic drug.
He says a bottle of Bactine does contain a potentially fatal dose of lidocaine.
Yes, there is enough in a bottle of Bactine to kill someone. Even in a half a bottle, they're roughly 2 grams, and that would be enough to cause death.
Even the McCanns' own expert, Dr. Bodden, says some of their worst fears about what happened to their daughter are unfounded.
The funeral director felt convinced that she saw signs that Annie might have been sodomized. Did you see any indication of that in either the photos or in any of the material you reviewed?
No, I didn't. Well, I don't see evidence that she was sexually assaulted.
As for that distinctive-looking letter J on Annie's ankle, Dr. Bodden says it may just be an accidental pattern from blood settling.
It was the way the blood settled in the body after she had died.
So you don't think that was a marking, a letter, some kind of a tattoo?
That's correct.
You don't think so?
I do not think so.
There's also some talk that there may have been a cigarette burn on her head.
But I don't think it was a cigarette burn.
You don't think that was another sign of some kind of abuse?
No.
On one of our visits with the McCanns, they show us bins of evidence they say the police returned to them.
How long has it been since you've gone through these things?
Years.
And there, among Annie's things, a discovery that seems to surprise even her parents.
She didn't take that.
Digital camera.
Her digital camera still sealed in a police evidence bag. Is it possible this has gone untouched and unnoticed for nearly 8 years? Mary Jane plugs the memory card into a laptop. When we come back, what Annie's camera saw. Stay with us. Nearly 8 years after Annie McCann's strange death in Baltimore, her parents do something they say they've never done before: search the memory card of her camera, stored among evidence in their garage. This is what they find: 14 photos, apparently taken by Annie.
It says May 2008.
But the pictures couldn't be more innocent. Later, Baltimore police tell us they checked that camera years ago. Yet another disappointing dead end. But the McCanns are determined to keep fighting.
Her death needs to be changed to homicide.
The McCanns feel that the Baltimore PD botched this case. Did you botch it?
No, ma'am. Not at all.
What if you're wrong? What if there's a murderer out there and you missed it?
I'm not.
You're convinced that this is a suicide?
Yes, ma'am.
No doubt in your mind?
None whatsoever. There is absolutely no evidence to indicate that this is a murder.
Recently, Mary Jane took another road trip. An emotional journey to Baltimore.
We're gonna go meet Wanda Player. She's just a really very special lady.
That special lady Wanda is Lakeisha Player's aunt. The McCanns bonded with her when the two families were attending court appearances for Lakeisha's killer, Darnell Kinlaw.
A teenage boy has been arrested after a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death in Croydon in South London on her way to school this morning.
This is every parent's worst nightmare.
She was standing at a bus stop. She was with friends. And then suddenly everything changed in a moment.
It was a gesture of solidarity with her friend that shockingly cost Eliane her life.
It was pretty much over a teddy bear. It's like, wow.
It's murder, right? You're under arrest for murder.
Our hearts are broken and we are overwhelmed by sorrow and grief.
So when people see her face, they should remember that a very beautiful girl has been lost. Eliane was born to my sister, and that was the most happiest day of her life. And it was like a miracle that she was waiting for.
I remember my auntie and uncle having quite a few difficulties having children, and so Eliane was literally the miracle baby. And I've always wanted a younger sister, and she definitely fit that category. I used to babysit and take her to school and pick her up at times when her parents were working.
How was school? Good. Every single time, same thing. How was school? Good, even though it was bad.
She was just very joyful, very funny, very cheeky. If she didn't like something, she'll make it very clear. Yeah, she was just a bundle of joy.
She's a lovely girl. She makes friends easily, you know, because she's always smiling. There's always a smile on Eliane's face.
Her group of friends, they were tight.
They were thick as thieves, I think is the best way to put them, actually. I think the magic of the friendship. They could all rely on each other and they all had each other's backs.
A normal teenager who loves everything.
She loved her little brother.
Oh, she idolized her little brother.
She loves her TikTok.
And I just remember the precious moments of me and her with music. I used to do a lot of music back in the days, and she used to be one of my biggest fans.
Go tell the world Jesus will save you. Jesus, I love you so much.
She went to church. She was a church girl, you know, and she sings. She loves singing. Even when she's in the bathroom, she's singing.
No, she don't see the light that's shining. Deeper than the eyes can find it. Maybe we've made a blind, so she tries to cover up her pain.
She'll be asking me questions about the Christian faith, and I was able to answer those questions in a way that a child would understand. But because of my music being very faith-orientated, we really connected.
She was doing GCSE art, she loved art. I think that's a sad part we'll never get to see, where it would have all taken her.
Eliane always wanted to do something big. You know, she wanted to be a lawyer. So Eliane loved studying. You see her all the time with a book, reading, you know, talking about justice, talking about things that she feels, oh, this person wasn't treated fairly.
The final time that we saw her, 1:30 on the 26th of September, and she left the classroom, and the last word she said to me was, "Thank you, Mrs. Smith." And that was it. And she left.
On a Wednesday morning, ahead of school, Eliane and two of her friends headed to a car park close to the Whitgift shopping centre in Croydon, South London. They were going to meet a 17-year-old boy called Hassan Sentemu. He was the ex-boyfriend of one of the girls.
The plan had been to exchange back goods that were given in the relationship. It included a teddy bear, it included some notes and some letters.
But Hassan Sentemu had left home that morning without the teddy bear. He was wearing a face mask and 2 pairs of gloves.
On arriving at the pre-arranged meeting point, the friend had bought this bag of clothes and it was given back to Hassan, but actually he'd arrived empty-handed. And there was a lot of, where are my things? And Eliane's actually made a comment, we're going to be late for school, we haven't got time for this. She's standing up for her friend.
We come to collect the stuff from Hassan yet. We'll make it like an interchange. She gets her stuff, he gets his stuff. He didn't even bring the stuff.
And she simply ran and grabbed the bag back. At that moment, Eliane was laughing. She was laughing, she found it funny, and one of the last moments that we see Eliane alive, she's smiling as she grabs the bag. This was no malice, this was trying to do what's right and get to school on time. And that obviously changed to horror. In only a matter of metres, she's caught by Hassan, who'd taken a knife from his waistband, and then he repeatedly stabbed Eliane.
I got a phone call. I arrived in Croydon within half an hour, and I couldn't believe it. When I heard it was a girl, what was going through my head is why? Why? I don't understand why. Wellesley Road is the main thoroughfare. You don't expect stabbings to happen in places like that. You just don't. You've got a hotel across the road. It's a link from East Croydon into the Whitgift. People on their way to work in the morning, people on buses on their way to work, children still on their way to school. You wouldn't expect something like that, especially in the morning.
There were just so many people that witnessed and saw this heinous crime. After the stabbing, he runs away. What we've been able to do through tracking down and obtaining numerous hours of CCTV is we see him discarding items in a bin. We later find out that that's the 2 pairs of gloves and the face mask that he'd taken out with him. We see him continuing to run away, and he then tries to hide and dispose of the knife, the murder weapon, in a front garden.
Sentemu used his Oyster travel card to board a 1:30 bus. At 9:42, he changes buses onto the number 64.
Eliane's friends, who had not only been with her but actually had seen this horrific assault, even through their trauma, they were able to tell the police officers that arrived on the scene what had happened and who was responsible. And that bravery that they showed as 15-year-old girls was able to help us in locating him. That information was very quickly relayed over the radio. We had the absolute luck of an eagle-eyed officer simply seeing Hassan getting off of the bus. He was able to go up and challenge him.
Show me your hands. What's your name, mate? What's your name?
Simply by looking at his Oyster card, the officer knows.
You got any ID on you, mate? I'm looking for someone who's just stabbed someone. I need to see your name. Say something on your Oyster card.
This is the suspect and he's able to arrest him.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back now.
He didn't know whether Hassan still had the knife.
Where's the knife?
I don't have
Where's the knife?
As far as that officer was concerned, he was approaching somebody who was still armed that had just seriously attacked a little girl.
You're under arrest on suspicion or GB act with intent. That's for stabbing your girlfriend in Croydon this morning, okay? In regards to that, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Not many something to rely on in court. Anything you do say, make them in as evidence.
Back at the Whitgift Centre, passers-by had been desperately trying to save Eliane's life.
We heard from a bus driver who ran to Eliane's aid, holding her hand saying, "I won't leave you and you're going to be okay."
I remember that bringing me a great sense of sadness, but also comfort to know that someone from the community of Croydon really comforted her in her last breath.
Got a Met officer colleague who's a chief inspector. He said, "Mate, we tried." I looked at officers as they were in tears because they tried their hardest on you. They tried their hardest. One of the young girls was so, when she was told that Eliane had gone, that young girl broke and we had to try our best to keep her calm. Sonia, it was the most devastating thing I've witnessed in years.
Eliane was pronounced dead at 9:21 a.m. That news was relayed to the officer who was arresting Sentamu.
Hassan, it's murder, right? You're under arrest for murder.
My sister called and said something bad has happened to Eliane. So I said, she's in school. So what do you mean something bad has happened to her? What, in the school? And she said no, at the Whitgift Centre.
The news that a young girl had been stabbed reached other family members, but they did not realise the victim was Eliane.
I was just broken to hear that a 15-year-old girl had been killed in Croydon, and I remember just paused and just really felt for the family, you know, what they must be going through and so on, to hear that. And then I started getting loads of phone calls, and I picked up to my sister, and she told me that Eliane is dead. And I remember I just froze. Me and my wife just stood there just weeping.
I went on the internet because that's the only thing I can do. And it says a girl has been stabbed in Croydon.
The impact it had on school was
immense.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And you could hear the girls in school, the screaming and the crying.
I think all they wanted to do is support each other, and that's exactly what they did the rest of the day. And then as parents came to pick their students up, we let them go because the best place for them was with their parents.
I saw my sister with the police, and I knew that the worst has happened to her family.
Shortly after 8:30 this morning, we responded to a stabbing here in Wellesley Road, Croydon. Our officers were on scene within 2 minutes of the call being received. They provided emergency first aid along with paramedics from the London Ambulance Service and the London Air Ambulance. Sadly, despite their efforts, a 15-year-old girl died at the scene. This is every parent's worst nightmare.
In police custody, officers noted Sentamu was smiling and joking. Asked where he discarded the knife, he gave a false location.
And the only other question that he answered was if he wanted to say anything to Eliane's family, and he said no. And everything else he said no comment.
Sentamu was charged with Eliane's murder and with possessing a kitchen knife in a public place without good reason. As he was just 17 years old, his identity was protected at that time.
He spoke only to confirm his name and date of birth, and his lawyer said there was no indication at this stage which way he would plead.
He was remanded in youth detention.
We, as a family, are struggling to comprehend this painful tragedy that has happened to our beautiful daughter and beloved sister, Eliane.
The day after Eliane's murder, her father, Michael, and mother, Dorcas, visited the spot where she died.
Our God, you reign forever.
To see the community really support us in our most difficult time was so beautiful to see. I remember when we walked through the Whitgift Centre to come out for the visual and we're seeing like 1,000+ people there, it was like, wow. It's clearly Croydon has been hit by this murder. We had over 800 people at the funeral and we had people standing outside, roads were closed. I'm like, wow, this is really honoring to her.
In Africa, we say every child is your child as well. And I felt today being here and supporting the family was crucial.
Among those paying their respects, the rapper Stormzy, a friend of the family.
That day was a very hard day for the family. Waking up in the morning, knowing that we have to go and bury our little girl.
She had an infectious enthusiasm for all things good and beautiful. Her passion for music, her eye for fashion, and her commitment to looking and feeling her best all resonated with her charismatic and vivacious personality.
The testimonies that we heard was amazing. Some of the things we didn't even know, but people were telling us how incredible, how beautiful, how lovely your daughter is.
Our investigation and our evidence was actually incredibly strong. Within a matter of weeks, we had the DNA evidence from the knife, we had the CCTV, which not only shows him running away and discarding the knife, but it shows the moments that he stabs Eliane. We have the CCTV building up to that moment where they meet in the morning. We had his clothing, we had the accounts from the witnesses. So we had overwhelming evidence, which meant really he had no option but to admit killing Eliane.
A 17-year-old boy has pleaded guilty in court to the manslaughter of 15-year-old Eliane Andam, but he has denied murdering her.
There was now no question that Sentamu had killed Eliane, but he insisted it was manslaughter, not murder.
Well, prosecutors here at the Old Bailey have not accepted the boy's not guilty plea, and he will stand trial for murder in November.
For his defence, what Hassan Sentamu has said is that he had diminished responsibility as a result of autism spectrum disorder. And what that means is that he didn't really have the capacity or the understanding to commit that crime.
Sentamu, who'd now turned 18 years old and could be named, did not give evidence at his trial. Instead, the court heard from forensic psychiatrists and from the young witnesses. They were asked about an incident the day before the attack, an incident where Sentamu claimed the girls had threatened him. The jury was shown a Snapchat video filmed at the Whitgift shopping centre. It showed the girls teasing him and throwing water over him.
The girls were standing up for Hassan's ex-girlfriend, who's part of their group. She had been disrespected by him. In her opinion, he had said some words that she did not agree with, and she wanted him to say sorry. They had a disagreement about that, and that involved some water being thrown over Hassan.
That evening, Sentamu called one of his friends and asked him if the incident had made him look like a fool. Sentamu told him, "I can't let this slide."
We know exactly what that meant. Yeah, we knew it meant he's going to bring some sort of harm. And I honestly believe that if it wasn't Eliana, it would have been someone else. And so, yeah, he was looking to bring some sort of revenge that day.
When he spoke to his friend, he said, "I can't let this slide." And I feel that's really chilling. He has sat there, he's contemplated what's happened in the Whitgift Centre with the water, and the following day, he didn't let it slide. He took a knife with him to meet 3 15-year-old girls to hand back over property, including a teddy bear. And as a result of that, Eliane Andam lost her life.
The jury took 11 hours and 42 minutes to find Sentamu guilty of murder by a majority of 10 to 2, and unanimously guilty of possessing a knife.
The verdict today is the first step towards justice for Eliane, but also a message that violence and knife crime, especially towards young women, will not go unanswered. We think about her every moment of every day, cherishing her love and the joy she brought to everyone around her.
It was a bittersweet relief. It was definitely a release in terms of the right thing has been done, but we're still going home with no Eliane. So that was still hard. So it wasn't a celebration.
I've never had the chance to process any grief. I live with it. I've not slept a full night for the past 1 year now. I've not. Every day for my sister is like walking death. Eliane was her only joy, a little girl. You have to force her to eat. You have to force her to do things. You have to force her to do everything. She forgets. The grief that she's going through, to be honest, I would not be able to tell you.
The whole thing you're going to teaching for is to see them go and become something that they want to become, reach their aspirations, you know. And yeah, you feel just robbed that you never get to see that.
Hearing that, literally, it was pretty much over a teddy bear. It's like, wow, like this amazing, young, beautiful girl who had a bright future, parents have invested so much into her, gone in seconds. And I think to this day that really grips us, that this really didn't need to happen.
Stand up, Hassan Sentamu. You have taken the life of a precious child. You have devastated the lives of those who knew and loved Eliane Andam, a bright, kind and loyal 15-year-old on her way to school with her friends. The responsibility for Eliane's death will be with you for the rest of your days. The sentence is detention at His Majesty's pleasure. For the murder of Eliane Andam on the 27th of September 2023, you will be detained for at least 23 years, which means, after counting the days served so far, a minimum term of 21 years and 199 days.
As a family, we are, in a sense, disappointed in that sense, because we know it was premeditated murder. We know that he thought about it, he brooded over it, he brought a knife the next day, and he brutally killed our sweet Eliane. And so even if he got 1,000 years, it's never going to do justice and bring any sort of peace. Our family's deeply ripped to pieces, and not just our family, but the whole community. So I hope that Hassan, in his cell, that he will really think about what he's done and really truly have a sense of remorse. But I still will never believe that he will fully understand what we're going through. Eliane deserved a long and beautiful life.
Though she is gone, we will carry her in our hearts forever, and we will continue to speak her name. Thank you.
Let's stand as we read God's holy word. It is not lawful.
We are a very strong family.
This was to fulfill.
It's not going to be easy, but we know that God will see us through. He said in all things, we should give him thanks. So even in the difficulties of our life now, every day we wake up and thank God for blessing us with Eliane for that 15 years.
Alongside their faith, Eliane's family say they're determined to try to help protect other young people by sharing their story. They heard in court how Sentamu had a history of aggression and violence to other children and had brought a knife into class at the age of 12, threatening to harm himself.
And what would have happened if maybe another male just took him by the hands and really invested in him and mentored him, or if other organizations really took him by the wings and said, yes, we recognize you're struggling here, we're here to help you, we're here to listen. I really wonder if maybe my cousin will still be here.
This is our child, enough is enough. Let's drop the knife.
Around Croydon, there are many Hassans just walking around Croydon. Young boys who are angry, young boys who are lost, young boys that want to be listened to. But I do believe there are great people in our community, great organizations who are in place that can really help and support these young people. So that is our hope, that we can start early from primary school so that foundation is there from the beginning.
No power of hell, no scheme of man can never pluck me from his hand.
On the first anniversary of Eliane's murder, her family unveiled a mural at the spot where she died.
We are telling people to put the knives down every time you see the picture of Eliane.
That mural is beautiful because it really does reflect Eliane. One of the things she loved, which you'll see in some of her pictures, is that she loved her hair. And so we really wanted to capture that. And that is the hairstyle I remember her having the most.
That's what makes that memorial so special, that each person has left their real mark on that tribute, and it's so personal.
So it's hopefully a reminder as people walk and drive through one of the most busy parts of Croydon to just stop and think of the impact that knife crime has on this community.
I like people to remember Eliane as a most beautiful girl. A girl that lived a life to fight for people, to love people, to just be there for friends and family. I want people to always know that the Eliane that we lost was very precious to our family, my sister especially. So when people see her face, they should remember that a very beautiful girl has been lost.